Hello and welcome to Pairs of Aces, episode 3. I'm Adam Lemon, the chief analyst at DailyForex, and with me is my co-host, Huzefa Hamid, senior analyst at DailyForex. Thank you for being on board. Welcome to everyone. It's been a pretty busy week, hasn't it, Huzefa? There's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, honestly, if you want to talk about what's important in the world right now, we have to talk about baseball. There's nothing else to talk about.
Baseball, go on then. You're gonna have to clue me in. I'm totally
Um,
don't know what's been going on. Oh, yeah, right. No, I did hear something. Go on, tell
I
me.
wouldn't know if I was still living in England. I wouldn't know about this. Firstly, I'll be honest, but I'm living in Toronto. Our baseball team, which hasn't won the World Series since 1993, is on the cusp of winning it. They're playing the LA Dodgers. The entire nation has gone baseball mad.
Wow.
It's all that anyone is talking or thinking about right now.
Wow. I've got to say, pleading ignorance here, I did not even know that baseball was a thing in Canada.
It
That
is.
they were even in the World Series because I always thought the big joke about the World Series was there's only one country in the world in it.
Technically two, but
Technically,
yeah, it's
too.
not, you're not
I did.
far off.
Do you know, it's funny because I grew up in LA, and of course the Dodgers were the team. And back then in the 70s, when I was a little kid, when I was living there, they were. I felt like every year they were playing the New York Yankees, and every year they lost to the Yankees in the finals. So we'd always get we
It's,
never won. So I'm interested to hear it's the Dodgers again. Going
it's,
by
yeah,
going by the previous form, they might well lose. So they always used to lose when I was a kid. Put it that way.
we are really strong this year. I don't know if we're considered like an underdog or a surprise winner, but we properly belong in the sport.
What are the? Have you checked out the odds?
I haven't checked out the odds. The games go on to like this is the thing about baseball. Some of the games are
Yeah,
like 5, 6 hours long.
go
They
on
go on. So I
forever.
don't know what happened last night. Oh no, there wasn't a game last night. There's one tonight. It's um, we've got three more games left. Let's see how it rolls out. But we're good. Yeah.
Cool.
When you say you didn't know baseball was a thing in Canada, it's a thing, and we're never in the upper echelons. Man, we're just floating by in mediocrity until recently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Feel another episode of South Park coming on, you know.
I wonder if it'll
Think-
strengthen the CAD. Yeah. Our patriotism.
I'm sure South Park will manage to work the baseball angle in the next time they have some
It's
kind
so
of
true.
war with Canada going on, you know.
Yeah. All right, mate. Enough of the
So
shenanigans.
no, shenanigans are good. And we did see some shenanigans this week. But they were strangely muted shenanigans, I thought. Like, you know, President Trump finally meeting with China. China. As I like to I can't hear the word China without hearing him going China, China. There's actually a video on YouTube of just clips of him saying China about for about 10 minutes, and no
He
one can say China like he can.
he does have the most distinctive speech patterns. I'll give him that. Yeah.
So he went on his tour of Asia, and he met Chinese President Xi, I think is
Mhm.
how you pronounce it. And of course, there's been a big build-up, you know, to these kind of China and America were taking measures against each other that were impacting economy. And when he was raking up tariffs on a whole bunch of countries, of course, back in April or March, China was his number one target. The percentage of the tariffs he was imposing just kept going up and up into triple digits.
It's bonkers.
And then the Chinese said they were going to restrict the exportation of rare earths, which I
Yeah.
think was the crucial thing that would have been very hard for the American tech industry to deal with because all these things that are mostly mined in China are absolutely vital for the manufacturing of
Yeah.
computer and other electrical
Yeah.
products. So I believe what was agreed was something along these lines: a lowering of the tariffs. The tariff rates are much smaller; they're still higher than they were. The Chinese are going to allow more export of rare earths. The Chinese are going to start buying American soybeans again,
Oh my
and there
goodness.
is going to be a 1 year moratorium on no more, you know, punitive trade measures the parties can take against each other for a year. And Trump, of course, had to be very bullish about this and paint it as this great victory. The Chinese media, incidentally, was a lot more muted and cautious about it. Um,
Okay.
and what I thought was really interesting was the stock markets were rallying and hitting new highs in America. But after that, although they're still holding up very well and they're close to the record highs, they're not, things aren't really taking off. So, I don't think this is the great victory. It's something, but it's not the great victory for the American economy, is it? Like it's a bit of a muted feel to it.
It's
What's your
hard
take?
to say, man. Fundamentally, the S&P 500 is still so overvalued.
Mm-hmm.
Like how, I still believe it will continue rising because it's on the trajectory it's in, and there's just capital flows into it. But and it's just the emotional roller coaster of the tariffs and these trading agreements, the back and forth. Everything now, every new piece of news is taken with a bit of trepidation, a bit of skepticism, um, and I think the reaction in the market was more of a sigh of relief than exuberance of celebration. It's like, okay, maybe we've got this behind us, and maybe we can kind of move forward in a more quote unquote whatever normality is these days in that more normal manner. It gapped up pretty high though. It gapped up, and I think it would kind of retest that as a support.
Yeah.
Last few days, I think it'll be a retest, and then I think it'll just
The
continue.
gap
Honestly,
up, I think, was on Monday.
yeah.
Because I was doing something on Friday where I sold some S&P, I sold some SPY, the ETF I use. I sold some pretty much by mistake. I was looking at some wrong numbers, and then after the market closed, I realized I was looking at the wrong chart.
You sold
Um,
to exit a position or
I
to go short?
a partial exit because
Okay, that's all
it's a long story, but anyway, it was a mistake. And I thought, oh well, I'll just buy it back on Monday's open, but it gapped up like
right.
70 points. So that wasn't great, but luckily it was only a small thing. But that was all before the Chinese thing. And then there's another thing we should get into, which is very similar. The US Federal Reserve met on Wednesday, the day before, just hours before actually, that Trump
Yeah.
announced the deal with China. And that was very strange because according to the CME FedWatch tool, there was a 99% probability that the Fed would cut rates by 25 basis points. So it was really like the most foregone conclusion you could have. And so the rate was duly cut. And then, of course, what everyone's really listening to is what Jerome Powell's going to say, the Fed chair. And he suddenly says something which I thought was very strange because there's a 90%, the market sees a 90% chance of a Fed rate cut in December at the next meeting. And Powell says, a rate cut at our next meeting is not a foregone conclusion, which, so this has clearly boosted the US dollar, but and the Fed Watch tool now shows only a 70% chance. That's what the market thinks. So the market still expects it. But I thought that was kind of a weird thing for him to say.
Well, there were some inflation numbers that came out where inflation is ticked up
Right.
to around 3% again. And really that's their mandate.
Mm-hmm.
That's their primary mandate. So they've got an eye on that, regardless of politics, policies, tariffs, etc. Their eye is on inflation numbers. And I don't think anybody in the Fed could look at those inflation numbers. And I think they were a little unexpected and then say, yeah, we're definitely still cutting rates.
Mm.
I think that's almost like even if he didn't make the announcement, I think the institutional money would have priced that doubt in of him cutting rates based on those inflation numbers.
Yeah,
And one thing I
that's
really
a
want to
good
say
point.
about the Dixie, the US dollar index, talking about the US dollar in general,
Right.
is we had this massive downturn from the beginning of this year of January. It's just been on this really nice
Yeah,
downtrend for
powerful,
about
powerful trend.
yeah until about July, but it's made this textbook support level in July and like mid-Sep, and it's made this my favorite classical TA chart pattern is like just a rounded top or a rounded bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and they're so consistent,
Oh
especially on
yeah,
these daily charts. And it's made, if you look at the
yeah,
Dixie,
yeah.
bring up a daily chart,
I
you can
review
you
it
can just
every
sit.
week, and yeah, even on a weekly chart, it was a beautiful
Yeah,
rounded bottom, and I was paying a lot of attention to this resistance level at 98.6,
I had
which
my
like
line at 99. Yeah,
which
but
which
go.
is only just kind of got, it's not holding it's not like, where it really respects the level and then it breaks it and then it respects
Yeah.
it from above. And those are beautiful. This one was more muddy, it was kind of going backwards and forwards, but that's also an invalidation. That also tells you
Yeah.
something.
Adam, are you saying the market doesn't act in textbook ways just when we want it to? That's such a news to me, man. I know what you mean though. Yeah.
Remember when I first started trading Forex, you're always looking for these textbook things,
Yeah.
and funnily enough, what really killed me was I found one. There was a whole thing about trying breakouts from triangles on the pound
L-
dollar.
Love
They
those.
used to be amazing. Yeah, the pound
Yeah.
dollar they were very reliable, especially if they happened around the London Open. And it's one of the first trades I did, and it was textbook. So I thought I had it all
I traded
sussed.
the
But
pound dollar. The first time I made, it was second time I made six figures in a single year in the market. I traded the pound dollar exclusively on that, essentially that pattern. It was just
wow,
so on a 15-minute chart. It was,
wow.
it was
Well,
so
I
clean.
hats off to you if you did that well with one currency pair and
Yeah.
one pattern.
You know what I
Um,
tell traders today? The art of technical analysis is just being able to squint at the right angle, like a 30-degree head turn squint. And if you can see the pattern, there it is.
you've got me on a new thought now. Maybe this is a bit more interesting. I want to kind of throw the script away. Um, Maybe a couple of years ago, I started trading with a lot more money than I had been trading before.
Okay.
My circumstances changed a bit, and I found that adjustment to be like wild. I mean, like that was because I would love to have a platform where you don't see the currency amount of your trade. You just see the points.
Yeah.
And when you start, you may be starting trading small, you see you're up $50, $100, but then when you get into the big time and you're there's thousands. One
Yeah.
day you're up 2,000, the next day you're up down like 3,000. Like whatever you're not used to when you step it up, that's a huge I found that like that took a bit of getting used to, like to keep your
In
head.
all honesty, that's an excellent suggestion for a feature for a MetaTrader, whoever, TradingView,
A broker
wherever
that
you're
wants to
listening.
lose all their money. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
no,
show the
honestly,
dollar
because
amounts.
the psyche is based on the dollar amount. It's always based on the dollar. It's not like when people have psychological issues of trading, it's because of the dollar amounts involved. Never the
Yeah.
well, actually, I wouldn't say never, but less rarely, more rarely. Get my double negatives correct. More rarely, it's the actual percentage amounts.
So how I mean, did you start on the kind of amounts that you trade, or did you like work your way? I know you've been trading for a long time, so you must have started pretty small, but I
I
thinking
I
more in
trade
recent
honestly, man. I
years.
started trading with just maybe a couple of. It was either £1,000 or £2,000. I genuinely cannot remember. It was like decades ago, but I remember the amount I had to have in my brokerage account for the minimum amount that the broker required. My dad had to top it up. Like this is in high school. I was working in a part-time job, and it wasn't even my account initially because I wasn't 18. So my dad had to open it. I dumped a little bit of money in there. He topped it up to meet the minimum, and that's how I on UK equities. Yeah, it was a small amount, and it was just UK, honestly, just UK equities, mid cap, large cap. But I was part of a larger uptrend in the UK equity market at the time, so I
Yeah.
was just benefiting off. I didn't understand at that time how much that was a benefit to me.
Was there a stage in the last few years where you stepped up, the capital amounts and you found that like shook you to watch the fluctuations,
I've been pretty okay on the psychological side when it comes to just like looking at the monetary amounts. Though honestly, it was just stuff like when the kids were small, it was hard to get anything done. When I moved home, um, random things like that, just life stuff it's been more challenging to my trading routine than the actual monetary stuff. Um,
So
yeah,
do you think you're like I was sort of great example was the Jesse Livermore book. What I really liked was you could see he had like something a bit missing, like something crazy could happen to him, and he would just like say, "Oh
wash
yeah,
it off.
he would just he had, but there was something a bit wrong with him. I mean, as you know from like the rest of his life story, but
Yeah, yeah,
I always thought that was interesting that maybe that was a part of his success, that the money meant almost nothing to him. So he was never like,
yeah.
oh my God, my trade's up like so much. I've got to grab the profit now, but
Yeah.
I really struggled with that. Like losses I can handle. It's like the old John Cleese joke. Like it's not the despair, it's the hope that gets you. And
Yeah.
you know, when you see you're up like 5,000 and then it goes bad and you're down 3,000, like for example, that killed me. And I've really just somehow I got past it. I don't know how I did, but that was something I really struggled with.
You just got to, at some point, man, you got to just work through it. Like you got to just like repeat, and just work through the issue until it normalizes in your brain.
Yeah. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
good reason why until you get to that place, you should try more long-term trading because you get kind of used to the fluctuations, but your trades have room to breathe. So
Yeah.
you experience
Yeah.
that, you know, and don't check it too often. But going back to what we were talking about, the dollar, it is. I think it trends very reliably, and I think now, like with this breakout, it's just the dollar index is just touching a 3 month high as we speak.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that you know that's pretty significant. Like we're now kind of entering into a bullish trend in the US dollar, and how far it will go, I don't know. But I think that's very key in forex trading. Like the dollar is king, the dollar tends to trend, and I think now we're going to be looking at things like for example, I'm long of the dollar against Japanese yen. The British pound and the Australian no, the British pound's been quite weak, and I think the Canadian dollar's been quite weak this week. And I think the dollar's making new long-term low highs against the British pound and the Japanese yen more than anything else.
Yeah. I know in the weekly, the USD CAD's been weak.
Mm-hmm.
The dollar has been, the CAD's been strong, but I think that that overall chart pattern that's made a base, I think that will hold. And I think that will be the driver, that chart pattern. Even on the GBP USD, we'll see some strength pull back on the upside, but I think that big double top is made on the GBP USD or a rounded top, however you want to look at it. I think that overall change in sentiment that will hold as well.
The pound
And
dollar tends to be quite, you know, it's not like the euro dollar where it kind of goes backwards and forwards and just works its way in a direction with a lot of wiggle
yeah,
room. Like the
yeah,
pound is almost like to me, if it's breaking out, go for it. If it's pulling back, uh,
yeah.
it's awfully risky. Like it's one of the few pairs that it's better to trade on breakouts, I think, than pullbacks.
The pound dollar is like an adolescent. It's like a teenager compared to the euro dollar. Like its emotions are like a teenager. Like it overreacts to the small things and underreacts to the big things. It's just like it's a really like imagine you have a teenager in your house
Or
and
you know, it's kind of the difference between British politics and European politics.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Europe, yeah, the European politicians are just that little bit more grown up in their rhetoric and their thinking, and they're a little bit more strategic, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're not chasing shiny new objects.
No, no.
It's much more consensus driven because of the structure of the
Yeah,
European
that's
Union.
true.
That's the thing. So yeah, there are very few big surprises.
So I mentioned, well, actually, funnily enough, as we mentioned that, the European Central Bank also had a policy meeting last week, as did you know, just like the Federal Reserve that I was speaking about, and the Bank of Japan did as well. So like the big three were all all had a policy meeting, and the European Central Bank didn't really do very much. I don't think there was really any takeaway from that meeting, or maybe a very small one, but I didn't really notice it or pay attention. It doesn't really seem to have done anything. But I am interested in the Bank of Japan because Japan's been this kind of weird story for me, where they've been in this weird kind of deflationary trouble for years, and they finally started getting out of it. And there was all this talk about a year ago, I think, like they're finally going to start. They won't have negative rates. They're going to actually hike rates. The rates are going to go up. It's going to things are going to become more normal over there. And what we're actually seeing is we're seeing like inflationary pressures start to take off, but there seems to be a political decision like to keep with heavy stimulus and not hike rates and not normalize. especially now they have a new prime minister who I believe is very big on keeping the stimulus. So this is keeping the yen weak. The Japanese yen has been in a trend just like the US dollar. It's not a very fast one, but so I'm like quite comfortable to be long of the dollar against Japanese yen now. And I noticed that was also hitting a multi-month high. It's above 154, I think, as we speak. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know
And it's
if
got
you're
very few resistances on the upside as well. So if
yeah.
it's 154 now, I think that the next big resistance is around 158, 159. It's just
Oh, let me
it
have a
has a lot of upside room
quick
on
look
the
at my
chart.
price chart. If you are trading the dollar yen long, it might be interesting for you to hear what Huzefa and I think on the long side about resistances. Actually, I don't have it. I've got to type it in. Let's see. Where is it? USDJPY. Let's get that up. Yeah, I've got a resistance just below 155, but I'm not sure that's a very key
It's
one.
two candles. It's reasonable.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah,
would have to pop up above that. It's two candles from Feb this year.
yeah, you're right. And then, well, actually, what I don't know, what can't remember what has me at 150. I think a really long-term high. Oh, yeah, yeah. The really long-term high, I think, is maybe even the record high was about 159. Yeah, in January this year. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's actually in a technically in a triangle. It's in a kind of it's breaking out of a bullish channel, but it's also in right on the top of a consolidating triangle on a very
Yeah.
very long term chart.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would suggest that if we get more of a breakout anytime soon, um, we could really see things go up to, like you say, about 158 or 159. So I wasn't very optimistic when I entered that trade a couple of weeks ago, but now yeah, I'm hopeful. But I think a lot will depend on the Bank of Japan, and if they do get to a point where they start hiking, I'm kind of surprised that they don't. But that's a choice they're taking for the wider economy, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very spiky chart, the USD yen, I find. Like
Yeah,
it loves its pullbacks and like
yeah,
really
yeah.
quick, snappy. It's almost like I'm
It's
not
not
a
one of my
conf
favorite pairs. It tends to let you down, quite a lot. I mean, or it will go completely crazy. Like I think because Japan has been more subject to politically driven like monetary policies, you have had these like huge crazy moves in the currency in like the last decade. I think like about 10 years ago it went, or maybe a bit more, it went crazy when they really decided to weaken it. Um, yeah, and then it came back. Yeah, it's interesting. And there's one more currency I wanted to talk about, the Australian dollar. Although maybe that's not so interesting. They had a really big inflation print last week. They were expecting it to go up to, I think, about 3.1% and went up to
Okay.
3.5%, which is quite a significant miss. And that has really like nixed the idea of any more rate cuts, which, going back a few months, there were rate cuts. And the Reserve Bank of Australia now, I think they're really constrained. Like there's no way they're going to be cutting rates anytime soon. So I think that's propping up the Aussie. So, which in turn will probably prop up the Kiwi. So those are probably two currencies you don't want to be short of against the US dollar. Like I'd see the pound and
Yeah.
the yen is more maybe even the Canadian dollar is more more hopeful trades.
Yeah. Yeah. And if the Aussie dollar, if you look at the Aussie dollar chart, it's similar. It reminds me of the dollar yen. It's got like lots of room to strengthen. Like it's about 0.69 was the last. Where are we at the moment? We're 0.65 roughly. It's got hundreds and hundreds of pips
Yeah.
of overhead room. If you
Yeah.
want to be long, you can have a nice stop loss if you find a good entry on a 4 hour chart, 15-minute chart, or an 100 pip kind of stop loss, which is still wide, but you've got
Wait,
hundreds
you
of
you
pips to,
you mean being long against the dollar?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I think that would be a bit risky.
Based on your fundamentals.
Well, I think the Aussie's strong, but it's only like one of the stronger currencies. Like I
Fair
think
enough.
the dollar's kind of pushing everything out of the way. So I think the people looking to capitalize on the dollar are going to be looking to trade against the yen, maybe the Canadian dollar, maybe the British pound. Yeah, like I was
So
saying.
what would your position be right now on the Aussie dollar?
That's a tough one. I think it's like if you were going to have if you were basket trading, which I
Yep.
never have, but I've always liked the I've always liked the
The
idea of
idea
it.
of it.
I think every trader's got like a phantom strategy they never do, but they kind of think that they could
Yep.
do, but they never get around to it. Mine would be basket trading, and I think the Aussie would be one of the currencies. I kind of like it because you're spreading risk, but if you had like a basket of three currencies long and three currencies short, I'd
Yep.
probably put the Australian dollar in there
Okay.
with the US dollar, and I don't know what I do for the third one, but so I think it's like relatively strong, but at the same time, like I think it's so kind of against it's almost like a bit irrelevant to me. But
Out of the seven majors right now, the Aussie dollar is at the bottom of my list in terms of a tradable opportunity. It has bias, but it doesn't have a complete formation, either on the charts or fundamentally. It has some interesting things going on, but I'm not looking at it as oh, this is a pair to trade.
yeah,
Whereas I look at the GBP USD in a different light. I think it's the chart is so clear to me.
yeah, it is looking pretty clear. Do you think that's got nothing to do with your British background? That's
No,
just
no, back
because I remember I think you were short when Liz Truss became briefly prime minister, but that was I remember you telling me you did pretty well out of that
you
because
know,
you knew what a disaster, economically or whatever, you knew it was just going to blow through pretty fast and it was just going to plummet. And you were right, and you did use your knowledge of the local
there's
environment.
one of the very few times I felt I had a sense of what's going on the ground. What I like to think is if you give me a chart, if you remove all the labels, even the time frame, and you remove the currency pair and the price scale, I should have the same view no matter what the chart is. And so if I were able to look at that chart and have a specific view just based on the chart, that's my guiding, that's my North Star.
Right.
And but when Liz Truss became prime minister, and it was such it was the I know news cycles are short, but she somehow managed to compress it even further. She had this mini budget, and it was
Meteoric, yeah.
they called a meteoric rise and fall. Um, a little bit off script, but there was a newspaper, a respectable quality newspaper. I don't know. It was a very well-known newspaper in the UK that showed a picture of a lettuce, a fresh piece of lettuce, and he took a photograph of it every day. And he said, "Will this lettuce outlast Liz Truss's premiership?" And that was it. And it was like
And it
it's a
did.
running joke. And this lettuce would like slightly decompose or slightly go soft. And you'd see in the pictures. And then eventually Liz Truss resigned and the lettuce was shown. The lettuce was still reasonably edible. And it was just like that was the sentiment. It was just like, can you imagine? I mean, we're not a banana republic. Like, Liz Truss, she was the prime minister of a major world economy and country. Um, and she's been compared to a vegetable.
Everyone's a banana republic now.
Yeah.
That's what happens
Yeah.
when everyone has a phone in their hand and the internet.
Mm.
That's kind of my theory. Probably we
Yeah,
always
it's true.
were. We just didn't know it, and things could be managed and covered up
Yeah.
or made to look more serious. But
But it was honestly, it was one of the few times where my knowledge of England, just being on the ground, having a sense of like the sentiment around it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there were three more things I wanted us to get through, but we are running into our last 5 or 6 minutes. So I'm not sure I'm going to get to the very last thing on the agenda, which was this new trading strategy I back tested and I wanted to talk about. Maybe we'll do that next week.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about soybeans because one thing I really love is trading commodities, but only on the long side. and
Okay.
I look for breakouts of 6 months or more. It may only really just because that's been a great strategy for like the past few decades. Sure, when it's going down, not so much, but commodities can give you. I'd urge anyone who doesn't trade commodities but who trades to really seriously think about trading breakouts of commodities and just to trail them, because they can give you just like amazing trades, like just amazing returns.
Yeah.
So I'm long with soybeans for no better reason than they're at a 6 month high price. They're going up. I bought it a couple of days ago. I don't use the futures. They're a bit too expensive for me, a bit too big. So I use a soybean ETF called SOYB, very original ticker. But I'm hoping it goes to the moon. I mean, who knows? But I know that China's now agreed to buy American soybeans, and maybe that's the reason for the one of the catalysts for the breakout. But
Yeah.
I
When you
know
say there's
you.
no better reason than the price is going up, that's the best reason to
Well,
trade anything. It's based on what the price is doing. That is the
we're all conditioned, aren't we, to at some level to want a deeper reason, But
and the
it's
thing
it's
about trading is we actually don't know if the
yeah,
reasons that
yeah,
we
you don't know.
ascribe are true or not. We know the price is true, and that's it. That's really all we know.
My uncle told me in the late 70s he mistakenly bought. He wrote a ticket to buy, I think, 100 ounces of gold, but he wrote by mistake, like somehow in the annotation they used, he wrote a million. And then he checked on the price like a couple of hours later. He's like, wow, the price is really going up. I'm going to call my client and tell him how well it's doing. And then he looked at the ticket and he went to his ops manager and said, I've got a bit of a problem. And he single-handedly moved the whole global gold market
Oh
for
my
for a
goodness.
day. And he read in the paper the next day about how it was like Saudi buying and all this stuff that it had like nothing to do. It was just
Oh, that
one guy
is.
who'd had too much to drink at lunchtime writing a bad ticket, fat finger.
I
So
feel that way when I read stuff in the New York Times, the BBC News, The Economist. The reasons they ascribe to market moves, it's just I find it breathtakingly out of context or sometimes plain inaccurate.
as a journalist, though, like you're pressured, like you've got to write a story about this, explain why it went up, and you look at it and you think, well, I don't know. I don't know why it went up. I can't really say for sure. And I try to be honest and say like nobody really knows why it went up, but there's just massive pressure for people want explanations.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's also a great story about Nassim Taleb after he made his first millions buying options. His dad was very well connected, and his dad got a big shot to call him and ask for his advice. And the guy was like saying, "Do you think soybeans will go up? Do you think gold will go down?" And he said, "I don't know," to every question. And the guy called the dad and was like, "Your son's messing me around. He's screwing with me," because the guy just couldn't believe that he'd made millions and he really had no idea whether
I
something
had a,
was up or down.
I had a similar experience on the panel at the Money Show. So it was they were asking me about my view on the dollar index. And I said, look, at the time, this is months ago. I said, look, at the time, I'm bearish based on these, and I'm prepared to change my mind. And I kept saying, if something changes, I will change my view. I kept trying to add that in, and I felt that the rest of the panel were trying to pin me into having an absolute certain view about how the next 6 months are going to play out, or 12 months. And I was like, this is where I am at right now, and it can change. And it was just nobody wants that level of uncertainty, but that's the reality of trading.
Yeah. I think when it comes to the media, they
Yeah.
want people with an angle, with a view, with an argument, not
Yeah.
somebody who's going to change their mind, based on conditions. But that's the smart thing
Adam,
to
can I say
do.
one thing about soybeans specifically before
Yeah,
we
yeah. Please make it
um,
quick, but do it.
absolutely. Soybeans been in the news a lot. People, I mean, it was a no-brainer to look at the chart because of what happened with China and the farmers that were hurting the US. You looked at a long-term chart, that soybean, it went down to a really nice support area, formed around 2020, like a long-term support. It would, I always tell people, go back to the dailies, go back to like old-fashioned support resistance on the long-term charts. You'll see levels, and then as the news cycle kind of picks up these, and the political events pick up these commodities or specific stocks, perhaps, or equity indexes, they'll react at these long-term levels.
Yeah. Yeah, they will. Though I prefer to buy breakouts. But yeah, that's absolutely true what you said. So we've come to the end of another show. By the way, this is the end of episode 3, and my producer Tammy, our producer Tammy, I should say, told me that I think about a third of podcasts fail before they finish the third episode. So we're in the we're in the top 2/3 of global podcasts everywhere, Huzefa. That's good to
That's
know.
wonderful.
Um,
I feel a sense of let's just get to episode 5 to say we're winners, no matter the quality of the
just wait
content.
till we get to 10. Yeah, then we'll really be in the top 5% or whatever.
I love it.
I do want to remind everyone listening that we do look at the comments. We welcome feedback, and if you want to ask a question for the next episode, which we're going to be doing a week from now, just write it in the comments, and we will be taking questions. I'd also urge you to never miss an episode and to get lots of other good stuff from Huzefa and I and other analysts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, DailyForex. And that's really all there is. Huzefa, thank you very much. And remember, if you liked and enjoyed our episode of Pairs of Aces, you can subscribe to Daily Forex's YouTube channel. Please add your questions for the next episode in the comments below.